If you're new to the channel, welcome. If you're not new, welcome back. Now that we've been moving right along with our NeoVim configuration, I want to get into some heavy topics. And today I want to get into something called language server protocols, affectionately known as LSPs. Going forward, that's what I'm going to be calling them, as LSPs. And basically a LSP is for, depending on what language that you are developing in, so whether it's JavaScript, PHP, Lua, whatever it is, you want NeoVim to be able to talk to those LSPs. Right now, we don't really have anything doing that. We just pretty much set up the looks and just basic functionality of NeoVim. So that's something that we're going to get into today. I want to go ahead and take a look at, let's see, we'll go to our Laravel project that we created in the very first episode. And instead of opening it up in NeoVim, I'm going to open it up in, let's say, VS Code, because this is something that is built into VS Code, which is something that we don't have to worry about. But because we are using NeoVim, we have to set it up manually. And all it's doing is really just making sure that the text editor, which is VS Code, can talk to any language that you put into it. So if you're using a Blade file or a Vue file or JavaScript or JSON or what have you, those LSPs already come baked into VS Code. If we go to resources, let's just say views, app.blade.php. As you can see here, this is a language file. It's already been set. Our syntax highlighting is already set. With the addition of some other plugins, we also have some code completions. And that's basically something that we're going to be setting up within NeoVim, but we do have to do that manually. Let me get out of this because in a minute. Just to give you an idea of that's what the kind of thing is that we're going to be looking at. Let's go to the Mason documentation and see what we have to do. In the Mason configuration, as you can see, it's a package manager that runs anywhere that NeoVim runs. And what it does is it allows you to easily install LSP servers, dApp servers, linters, if you want to use Prettier or ESLint or whatever it is. This is a program that helps you make sure that those things are installed, as well as formatters and stuff like that. So let's go ahead down and check out the installation. And as you can see, that's all it is, which is requiring it for our LazyVim. I'm going to copy that. I'm going to come back to our configuration and go to NeoVim config. I create another file, and I'm going to call this one lspconfig.lua. Even though we're going to be needing some other plugins, I'm going to put them all in this one file because it's a little bit easier to read. We'll go ahead, paste that in, and actually move that down. We're going to return. And because we're having a few of these, I just want to set it up so that we can have some space in doing that. Now that we have that installed, I want to do config equals function. And all I need to do here is require Mason setup. Anything that we need to do in there, we'll be able to just use Mason. Let's go ahead, exit out of this real quick. Go back into NeoVim, and let's see. I forgot to do a function. As you can see, NeoVim is installing Mason. Now, before we get too deep into this, I also want to check out check health because we haven't checked it in a few episodes, and I want to make sure that we don't have anything installed that isn't working the way it's supposed to. Well, as you can see, Mason install update, but that's fine because we have just installed Mason, but the other parts of it work just fine. And we don't have any languages installed yet, so that's fine. For now, it looks like we're doing all right. And this tree sorter one, it's just saying that if you want to use tinstall from grammar, which is, or ts install from grammar, you can do that. We don't really need that, so I haven't done that. But everything else seems to be okay. And we're not doing Perl. Let's get out of here. Neoconfig. And let's continue on. Now, the second part of this entire configuration is using Mason LSP config. And what this package will do is it'll sort of be a bridge that tells Mason which LSP configurations that we want, which LSP servers. So let's go down and take a look. As you can see, it bridges Mason Vim with the LSP config, which is something that we're going to install too. It's going to bridge it together so that it installs really easily for us. So let's go down to installation and we can just grab the install. What I want to do is, instead of installing it like this, you can get rid of this one because we've installed it already up here and we've configured it. And for now, we're going to get rid of that one because we're going to configure that in another sort of table. What's the first thing that we can do? Well, because we're using Lua as a language at this point, that's the first LSP that we can kind of deal with and manage. We're going to make a config equals function. Here, I'm going to require Mason LSP config set up, and we're going to have some parentheses, and we're going to create another table in here. All we want to do is ensure installed the Lua language server. So that's good there. Let's close out of that. Let's go back in. And now Mason is installing that LSP config nvim, or Lazy is installing the Mason LSP config nvim. So that has been installed. Let's exit out of that. Now let's go back to that LSP config file. Very good. So now let's install that last one, which is the nvim LSP config. And I'm just going to go ahead and grab it from here. Don't need this. We don't need this. And again, we can also grab this config and copy it over. And instead of Mason LSP config, we're going to create a variable. We'll call it local LSP config equals wire. And instead of Mason LSP config here, it'll just be LSP config. And actually, we don't need this part right here. But here we can say LSP config dot Lua ls for the Lua language server setup. So now what this should do is it should install the Lua LSP. It's installing the LSP config. Good to go. Wait out of that. As you can see here, if you take a look, you see that W, these are Lua files. It is acknowledging this Lua space. It is grabbing it as an LSP. So we're now going to be able to get some information about this type of file, which is a Lua file, because we're using the language server, the LSP. Now this has a line with trailing spaces, which is cool. So let's get rid of that, save it. And now that error is gone. So this is going to handle errors. It's going to handle suggestions if we need to have something installed. And that's a good thing. Now you can kind of get the general idea of what it's doing. I have been setting this up so that I have a separate folder within this plugin folder so that we can kind of keep the config stuff together. So I'm going to go ahead and make a folder here, and I'm going to call it LSP. And in it, I'll have a mason.lua. And then I'll also have a LSP config.lua. Which means that we have somewhere where we need to call this from, and that's in the Lazy. And because we already have the plugins installed, or the plugins being called in this Lazy configuration, I'm going to go ahead and add that to this. And all I need to do here is do LSP. Why don't we close this out and just make sure that we're not getting any errors, which it looks like we are doing. I forgot to name something the correct way. Let's go and see what that was. Invalid spec. Because I didn't put anything in those files. But that's all right. we'll come here. We'll start with the LSP config, and I'm going to grab all of this. For now, we'll put it in this one. And then I am going to grab these and I'll put them in our LSP config. As you can see, we're getting some code errors already. Let's see, return is pretty cool. But again, we only have the language server for LSP. Sorry, for Lua. That's good there. Right now, come back here, and now we can get rid of this LSP config file. Rid of that. And hopefully we shouldn't have any errors. Good. So our stuff's still working. That's awesome. So what we can further do is in our Mason, we can bring in this LSP config thing here by doing it like this. Well, we'll go to Mason, and then in the Mason, instead of using the config here, we can add it as a dependency. Create another table. Now we can grab this here, copy this, paste it, and we can add the configuration down here. So in here, instead of firing it like this, we'll make a variable called local mason equals, then we can use this. And we don't need a setup function here, saying that it's unused, which is cool. We can also do local mason LSP config. And then here we can now require that mason LSP config. Now we can do our mason config or mason LSP config setup. And now we can come here and we can grab this. It's this. So that now any languages that we're installing, we're going to install it in this Mason file and leave that as it is by calling that LSP config. This way we don't have to directly access it. The other thing too is we can use this Mason config or this Mason variable, and we can use it so that we can include icons in our Mason UI. For now, I think this is good. And actually something else that we can do too is call automatic installation, and we'll set that equal to true. Now the good thing about doing that is when you enter a page, that LSP or whatever that language is will be automatically installed. And actually this should be up here. So we don't need that. Save that. Let's go clean up our LSP config file. And now we don't even need this anymore because we put it in our Mason file. But let's see, NeoVim, we can keep the config, LSP config, and we can get rid of this one. But now what we want to do is we want to set up some key maps so that we can use this. Let's create another variable, and I'm going to call this one key map. And I'm just going to say that that is vim.keymap so that this way all of the key maps that we use will just be able to put keymap dot whatever it is. Now I want to create another variable, and I want to call this one ops or options. And this one, I want to have it do no remap equals true, and also silent equals true. So now we can also create a variable called local on attach equals function. We'll have a client in here, and we'll also have the buffer in here. This, because it is Lua and this is a function, we can put end there to end that. Good. But you can see we're already getting some errors. So Vim, there's an undefined global called Vim. there's no definition for it. We'll deal with that in a minute. And we just have some unused variables, which is also not a big deal for right now. So what I want to do here is I want to take the ops buffer equals the buffer that we're passing in. So for now, I just want to set up two of the key bindings that we can use right now. One of them will be ops.description, and this will do see available code actions. And the key map that I want to set for that is when we're in normal mode and when we're in visual mode, I want to use the leader key that we have, which is just a space, CA. We'll do space CA to see what the code action is for that. And I'll tell you what that is in a bit or why that's important. So vim.lsp.buff.codeAction ops, and that's that. The other one that I want to do is ops.description equals show documentation for what is under cursor. So the key map for that will be N for normal, do capital K, which will be for us Shift K, vim.lsp buff hover. We'll pass in those ops, and that's good. And actually, I do not need these brackets in here. What is it that these are doing? Well, the first thing is this code action. This vim.keymap is giving us an undefined global vim error. What this will allow us to do, it will allow us to see what the recommendations are for this error. That's what space CA will allow us to do. And that will also allow us to clear that error. It'll take some action and it'll clear the error. The other one is to show documentation for what is under the cursor, which is just basically if we are on some line, so let's say Vim, and we do Shift K, then we'll be able to see the documentation for what is Shift K. Let's save this, go back in, and that was under LSP config. So as you can see, we don't have any errors in here anymore. And I think I broke something. But if we go to Vim, where is it? We go to space CA, as you can see, we've lost some code actions. So where did they go? Let's find out. Why did we lose our language server? Let's go over to the Mason, and it looks like I forgot to require that. Local Mason, local, I put it here. Put it up here. See if that has any effect. After all of that, then we actually need to call the LSP server for Lua. So here we can do LSP config. We'll open up some brackets, straight brackets. We'll say Lua underscore LS because that's the language server that we need to set up. Setup. And here we can do on attach equals on attach, because that's the variable that we're calling up here, and then we're just making it work. And that should be good. So we have the Lua LS language server installed on attach. When we get into a Lua file, then it should automatically attach, and then we'll be able to use these key maps that we created. Exit out of that, neoconfig. So we seem to have gotten back our Lua language server stuff, and that should still be good. As you can see here, Vim isn't a thing, but we have a code action, right? We have a code action which should say, hey, well, we have an undefined global Vim. What's the procedure for this? So we'll do space CA, and as you can see, we have a list of different actions that we can take where you can mark it as a global variable, you can disable diagnostics in the workspace, different options to handle that. That's what code actions are. We're going to deal with this. We're going to clean this up in a few minutes, but right now that's what it looks like. Now, the other thing is that we can show documentation for whatever's under the cursor. This one is going to be Shift K for Shift capital K. And let's say I just go to, I don't know, let's say I just go to key map. I can do Shift K. And as you can see, we have a little pop-up that says it's unknown. We don't know what it is. But if we go to something that might be a little bit more known, and then we do Shift K, and we see on attached, that's what it's calling the client, any Buffner, whatever. Whatever's being read in here is being read from up top. What else is there? Let's go to hover. Do Shift K, global variable, hover unknown. We go to on attach, we can say Shift K, and it's just telling us what the buffer is, what's in the function. So the last thing that I want to do for today is I want to add something that makes this a little bit nicer. So when we do that, it's not down here and it shows up as a much nicer looking thing. This telescope UI select.nvim package, what this will allow us to do is to have something a little bit nicer so that when we have a pop-up in that way, it's just more visually pleasing on the eyes with some information on what we can do for code actions. This works with telescope. What I'm going to do is I'm going to come down here and I'm just going to grab this for right now. We'll come back and grab the configuration in a minute. So here we can just do in telescope. Come down to the bottom here, and I want to make it so that this is more than one table in here. Clean that up a bit. And open up some config. So config equals function. And then here, just going to grab, we'll take out what we don't need. Just go ahead, paste that in. Straighten this up a bit. We can get rid of these. The extension will be UI select. We'll get the themes drop down. We can get rid of this. And then we can also get rid of these comments because we're not going to need any of those. Could leave them in there, but I'm sure you guys can find them on your own. That looks like it's done. Let's go ahead, exit out of neoconfig. Lazy is now installing it. Exit out of that. Go to telescope. And let's see, what can we look at first? Well, we have this undefined global Vim. So let's do space CA. Now you can see it's a nice little pop-up. We can mark it as defined global. I don't typically like to do that, especially in a NeoVim configuration, because Vim, NeoVim have their own globals, and I don't like to mix the two. So for something like this, I can just disable it. Two things you can do. First is you can press the number, and that will do that. Or you can also do Control J and highlight whatever it is, and then press enter, and it'll do the same. And as you can see, we no longer have that Vim sort of error thing. Don't have any errors. We're all good there. And the last thing that I want to do is I want to install some other line spaces only, post-emptive spaces. So now we've gotten rid of that. Unused client, I'm going to leave it there for right now because we're going to come back in a bit. Something else I want to show you is now if we do nvim and we have this, we can now actually start using this. So something that we can do is go to recent. Well, we don't even have to go to it. We can just press R and that'll open up the recent files that we've had. Last thing that I want to do is do our check health. Because we've installed some packages, we want to make sure that there isn't an issue with anything. And as you can see, our Mason errors that we had, or just little quirky things, no longer have that sort of an error. And these are the languages that it's asking for, but we're not using any of these. LoRaWX, Java, We already have Node, NPM. We have all of these, so that's not throwing up any kind of an error. And pip is for Python, which we're not setting up. But as you can see, our issues look good. We don't have any issues left for this. Everything is basically hitting green. So close to just having an excellent system run for Laravel development, but there is a lot of configuration to set up, so we've kind of been plugging along. Now we're going to add some more languages for the language server, as well as some code completions, and after that we're going to be pretty much done with our configuration. If you're enjoying the content, please go ahead and click that like button, as it really does help out the channel. Here's a video YouTube thinks you'll like, and here's a playlist to follow along. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.